Hello and welcome to Sylvan Mist Designs. We are back today, finally, with a new canvas. It's been a while, admittedly. I took a big hiatus over the holidays and long overdue into January, February. What I like to do is take some Krylon. In this case, I used a clear glaze, and I take and just do a super light mist over my canvas. Let that dry. It literally takes about 2 minutes, and then do a second light mist, and that is all. I don't paint a base color or do any gesso or anything like that on them. Unfortunately, the glaze that I used has a very, very strong odor, and even long after they're dry, almost 24 hours after they're dry, they still have that very, very strong odor. And I don't even like bringing them inside of my home for almost 24 hours. I like to go out on my deck, get them sprayed, and then just leave them out on the deck to kind of air out. Because even if I have brought them in a couple hours, long hours after they've dried, that pungent smell is still in the air, and it's not good for anybody. As you can see on this side, I do have some very spring colors. The two purples that are laid out are going to be the Dioxazine purple and the white orchid. Certainly hope I pronounced that correctly. And then for our greens, we've got the Hauser, which is just the medium and the light. Those are the four main colors that we're going to be using. I'm going to incorporate some gold, but we'll talk about that when we get there. My Happy Dotting Company tools are up here to the right. I have got all of my tools laid out from a size 8 all the way down to the 0.5, and I grabbed a 14, which is going to be our center dot. And then my go-to is my nail art tool, the 0.5 tip for swooshes. One thing that I am going to point out before we actually get started painting today is that, as you will notice, I didn't lay this out as a standard 8-point. If I had laid this out as a standard 8-point with just the 2 crosses and then the diagonals, unfortunately, I would not get these tips here on the very corners. And that, to me, for this particular piece is going to be pretty important. I have laid this out in such a way that it's more like a sunrise or sunset, if you want to look at it, kind of from this angle. I am going to be making a couple of adjustments for this to make sure that it stays symmetrical. So just keep that in mind as we go through here. Each of the points are not going to be identical. So pay close attention when you follow along. The other thing I will say is this is super heavy on swooshes. If you are not quite 100% comfortable, or if you don't think that you're quite ready for that many swooshes, then please at this moment stop. And there, I do have a video on my channel, which I will do my best to remember to put a link to here so that you can go take a look at that first. Get yourself a little bit comfortable and then come on back. Okay, if you are great at swooshes or you're okay with that, I use the 2-tool method because I use flat-headed Happy Dotting Company tools. You don't have to do that, but again, that's going to be my method. That's my go-to. All right, so I am ready to jump in. I hope you guys are ready too. Okay, let's go. So we're going to jump in with the 14. Now, the first circle that I have drawn here is actually like a 0.5 on the compass, like 0.5 inches, not on the centimeter side, and it almost fits the 14. Okay, so if you are a little bit nervous about placing that first dot, that's something that you could potentially do, is just make sure that it is that size, and then you can match that up right at the edges so that you don't get that off center in any way. Okay, I'm going to load this tool up really nice and heavy here since it's my largest dot. And see if I can get a good angle right over it. And then get that sat down real nice. And then our second set of dots is going to be a 2. Okay, now the 2, I'm going to go into the lighter purple on this one. If you wanted to, you could go and follow the guidelines here, right? So you can go let's just say compass or clock, right? Start at 12 and 6 and go around. For me, I've practiced this particular design, this particular size pattern, I guess. Using the 14 as the center and the 2 as the other dot. I've used that several times, just a matter of practice, you know, that I sort of know that this is going to fit. Now that we've got our center in place, we're going to move up to a 5 and we're going to go into the dark green here. Okay, so we are going to hit swooshes pretty early. I'm going to jump into an 8. We're going to use a lot of this size. Okay, so I'm going to take my 8 and I'm going to have my tool handy as well, and we are going to go into dark purple again. For the swooshes that I'm going to do here, I do want to do 1 on each of the points plus 1 in the center. So right on the lines here, I'm going to start. I'm going to get that one centered right over my line. And then we're going to take this at, again, if you're not too great with swooshes, I would suggest pausing and going to check out the other video, get a little bit of practice, just because you probably wouldn't want this to be your practice piece, but that is completely up to you. But I will still go ahead, at least for the first couple, and make sure you understand how I'm doing these. I'm going to start down here at the back, and I'm going to go all the way through. And I'm going to pull this up to the line here. Now I'm not rubbing the canvas, okay? Very, very gentle strokes. If you picture a midline here through the dot, what I'm going to do is take from the midline on this edge, and I'm going to pull this up to meet the tip, okay? Same thing on this side. Now, as you notice, it's just an outline at this point, and now we're going to color. Okay, so now we're going to take the paint from the inside, and I'm going to move it to fill that in. Now, this is another reason that I have sprayed this canvas to start with. If you spray it with the, well, you can use whatever you like. I love the Krylon. The glaze is actually nice, but it allows your swooshes to be very smooth. They will pull kind of like glass. Okay, so you don't have to worry about it soaking in to the canvas, the paint soaking in, or you getting kind of scratch marks or anything like that. Plus it makes cleanup much, much easier. Okay, so we're gonna do that again. I am leaving the paint on my tool. I'm not gonna wipe this off. Bottom, drag it all the way through, follow the line right to this one here. Okay, we're going to use that midsection, and I'm going to draw a triangle right up here, and same here. Okay, that makes just my guideline, and then I'm going to pull the paint to fill that in. Now again, feather light touches. If you touch the canvas, you're perfectly fine. Okay, we kind of do want to touch the canvas, but if you hear scratching noises, then you're doing it too hard. Don't be afraid as well to dip the tip of your swoosh tool into the paint once you know where you're going to go. You don't have to draw out the lines like I am. If you are going to use a paintbrush, or if you're going to use a round-headed tool and you're just going to pull these out, then don't even worry about this. Okay, just make sure that your tool is loaded up very, very well. But again, once you got to that stage, like I said, for example, if you just want to do something like this, and you realize, oh, I don't have enough paint, go ahead and dip and then pull. you're going to notice right away that the ones on the 4, I don't want to say corners, but these 4 sections are going to be a little bit quote unquote off. And again, that's because we did not go with a traditional 8-point. As you can tell here, there is a lot more space between these 2, those spots here, than the rest of the 3, okay? And we are gonna compensate for that, right? So just be aware. I'm gonna go into a 4 here for this one. I'm gonna pick up my tool again. Okay, now for these, since these are, I'm gonna say upside down or maybe backwards, because I think we're much more used to having the point meet the center or go towards the center than we are outward when we do mandalas. So with these ones, let's see, I think I do want the light green for this. Okay, so I'm gonna take the 4, and what we're gonna do this time, so I'm gonna take the dot and put it right here at the end. I'm gonna make sure that it's nice and heavy. So I'm gonna give this one a second dot over the top. Now, instead of making a dot like a teardrop, we're actually going to do it a little differently. This one takes, I'm not gonna say a little bit more practice, but this one for me always takes me a little bit longer. So instead of going down from this side, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna come in from the middle here just to get some paint on my tool. And again, we're gonna work from that midline. And I'm gonna take this just along the edge and I'm gonna follow along. Okay, now as you can see, I'm kind of making almost like a figure 8 or the number 6 maybe even in the paint, just so I can drag it down. Okay. And then I'm just gonna bring this just around the corner, just like that. And let's go around to this one. This shape is going to go all the way around on both sides of these swooshes underneath. But just for ease, I'm doing one side at a time. Now with these, feel free to get just a little curvy here. Same thing with this. If you find that you're not having enough paint to bring this all the way down, and as you can see here, I'm doing this multiple times. I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 8 times, depending. You can actually just dip the tip of the tool back into the paint and do it that way. And I also don't necessarily like pulling in a straight line like this. I like going through the whole motion because I feel like it gives me a better tip to it. If I pull more in a kind of a straight line, I get a straight line, right? So if I go like this and I continue this down like this and I kind of repeat that motion, it makes it thicker here. And I think I feel like I have more of a tendency to want to continue that straightness versus letting the tool guide around like a pen. I certainly hope that makes sense. And maybe as you yourself are doing this, you'll understand what I mean just because of the flow. All right, now that I've got that level finished, I'm gonna go down 1 into a 3. And I'm gonna put a dot right here. I'm gonna nestle it right under this one. Get another dot here because we're gonna do the same thing. Okay, now at this point, it's a lot easier to tell that I have this extra space here on the top and the bottom. So, like I said, we're going to remedy that. We are going to make this symmetrical, but we are going to make these two different. Okay, so we did a 4, a 3, and then I'm going to drop down into a 2. Now with the 2, we're going to go into the dark purple, and we're going to do 1 extra petal line. I don't know what you want to call these. Here are these little swooshes. Just on the, let's call this the north and south side. And we still have a tiny bit of room. And so with my original design, I'm going down again, a half a step, and we're gonna do 1.5, again, just on the north and south side. And I'm gonna drop that into the dark green for this one. Now, if you find yourself with a little extra room on any of these other petals, and most of mine are coming pretty close together, you can go ahead and do this as well. The only thing that I would suggest is that if you decide to do it, make sure that it's going to be the same on both sides. Make it symmetrical, whatever you do, and it doesn't matter what you do, whatever you want to put in there. We are now done with the center. Now then, we need to move to our next ring here. And what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna move away from swooshes just for a little while. Okay, just for a little bit. I am going to jump back into my 8, which we're gonna use a lot of 8s, okay? And this line here, we're actually going to be making, actually, let's start here. I'm going to take a step back. Let's do a landing dot. I need a little landing dot just to make sure that this comes out correct. So I think it should be a 4. Yeah, okay, all right. Now the reason I do that, as you can see, well, hopefully you can see this. I'll tip this maybe just a little bit. There we go. There are 2 lines here that I've spaced out. And I want the 8 dot to sit on the second line. I don't want it to directly touch the middle of the flower. So I'm gonna take the 8, I'm gonna go into the light purple now. And then above each one of these swooshes, we're gonna add a dot in. Dot of paint here. As you can see, that just wipes off beautifully because I have that glaze on the canvas. Without that glaze, you'd never be able to wipe it off that cleanly. Now I'm going to pick up the 4 and we're going to do a top dot on these, and I'm going to stick with that purple for the meantime. I'm going to go ahead and do that in the dark purple. And we're still just going to follow the lines. Now we are going to be walking dots around the circle, but Happy Dotting Company tools and any flat tool, in my very personal opinion, does not walk dots well with any size above a 3. For me, sometimes even 3 is pushing it. So what I do, I'm going to take the 3.5 because this was a 4. I'm going to take the 3.5. And what I'm actually going to do here is do the series of walked dots in stages with tools instead of with one tool. Okay, so we're going to go plural here. So I'm going to take the 3.5 and I'm going to do 2 dots. I'm going to walk just 2 dots. Same exact way that we do everything with walked dots. Now that was a 3.5. For each 2 dots that you lay down, you're going to go down a size, okay? So 1 dot is half 0.5 of a size. Okay, so now I'm just gonna take the 2.5 and we're gonna continue the walk as normal. Here, I am actually going to have what I call a landing dot. So I am not concerned with bringing these all the way down and closing them at the bottom. Now we're gonna do another set of walk dots, and I'm just gonna go up a half a step for these ones. So we're gonna go into the 4.5 to get the tops. Now if you're lined up with me at this point, these should be at the midsection of this next set of grid lines. I'm going to use the same theory, so we're going to go down to a 4 for just 2 dots. Then we're going to go down a full size to a 3 and do 2 more. Okay, and then now for the last one, I'm going to go into a 2 and I'm going to meet these here at the bottom. So now we're done with that section, and I'm afraid to tell you that we have more swooshes coming. Okay, I don't know that I necessarily want to go to a full 8. Let's go down to a 7. All right, so I'm going to take the 7. This time, instead of starting with the dark purple, I'm actually going to start with the dark green, and we are going to be putting swooshes here in between these. Now these are going to be more quote-unquote traditional ones, okay? We're gonna make them the right direction. I don't know if that's if that's really what I'm gonna say there. But we are gonna make these with the point towards the center. For these ones, what I wanna do is actually put the dot right on top. In between these 2 lines here. I actually want it sort of up. I want it probably, yeah, let's do that. Right in this intersection, I'm just trying to gauge here. You know what, I'm kind of changing my mind as we're doing this. Okay, so now I'm gonna stick it right in between. So I changed my mind. All right. Let's get that nice and heavy. Okay, so it's sitting, this line right here is going to cross section the top dot, okay? The next line is here, so it's going to be between these 2. All right, so we're just gonna do the standard as far as this is concerned, and we are actually gonna go down to this line here. I'm not gonna go all the way. Get that filled in, and then we're just going to make these all the way around. actually going to wipe this one away. I moved it just a little too far to the right. Okay. I'm just using my paint cloth for this. You can actually get in there with a Q-tip if needed. I'm going to skip that point. Let that dry for a moment. Okay, so those ones are done. Now we're going to go down to a 6. I'm just going to drop down one full size. We're going to do another set of swooshes in the light purple here with the 6. Now these ones, again, I'm going to drop kind of right in the nook here. I guess it should be give or take right at that line. So where the bottom of the dot had sat to make the previous one. And I said, this is going to be a more traditional one. So we're going to follow this line down and we're going to connect this one here. Let's see if I can get a little closer. There we go. And we're going to do a swoosh on either side of these ones. Again, as we finish this, you're still going to see this extra space on the north and south. Oops, I should just put a dot of paint there. Okay, let me get that up there. What we're going to do with that one is, again, we're going to fill in the gaps. So let's go into our dark purple here. And now we should be even with that. I'm going to take a step back again here, and I want to make sure that I have a nice landing dot for each of these here. Now this is going to be a 5. I'm going to put the landing dot here under these swooshes. I think for that, let's see. We may want to go dark purple on that. And just get a small dot right there underneath the swoosh. And then we also want one here. Now I'm going to go down to a 4.5 just because it's a little tighter of a space. And I'm going to use the dark green for this one. And I'm just going to tuck that right in the space here that we have made. And it should fit just like that. Now, could you do this dot before you lay out these? You absolutely can. I just don't, just because a couple of times while making this, I've adjusted the sizes and the positions of these elements. And so for me, it made a little bit more sense to leave it to the end so that I could do this. I could kind of fiddle around with that just a smidge more. The only other thing that I'm going to do for this particular session, this particular pass, is I do want to make a very small crown for the top of these so that everything meets this line. I probably want to do that in, let's see, a size 2 is my guess. Yeah, a 2 will be just fine. So we're going to stay in the light green. And what I'm going to do, this line that is protruding out to the corners here and from the top, I'm actually going to put one dot on either side of that line, and then one above. I actually don't recommend that you use or do the dots like a walk. I do suggest that you place the dot and then re-dip, just so that you have an even size here. All right, so now that we are finished with this edge here, now we're going to go on to the outer, and we've got a repeating set of this pattern out here. What I'm going to start with is actually another set of these kind of petals here in the interior. These are going to go right above the walked dots. And again, they're going to go all the way around, and they are going to start with the 8. Now you will notice this row of swooshes here is actually shorter than the ones inside. And that's because here at the ends, I do not actually want to touch the edge of the canvas. Now that these are done, again, we're going to be repeating this pattern, but I'm going to make it a smidge smaller. Okay, so we're going to go back to a 4 here, and we're going to do the first ones again in the light green. Okay, so we're going to follow the same thing as previously, and we're going to go down to a 3. And in this situation, we're dipping into the light purple. Unlike in the middle, we only had room here for the light green and the purple. We did the dark purple and the green just on the top and the bottom. But with this, we have plenty of space. So we're actually going to continue with this one, which is a 2 in the dark purple. Okay, now for the walk dots, I'm going to start with a 3 just to do the top dot here. Now for the walk, I'm actually just going to go down a half a step to the 2.5. Doing here, I initially started out with just 4 dots along the side for my walk, but I decided that I actually wanted another one to kind of close this gap. So I'm just using the 0.5 to make one additional dot here. Now, while you are doing the walks, you can actually just go down the 5th so that you don't have to do this. Okay, so the next round, we're going to start with the top dot as a 4, and we're going to go into the dark purple. Actually, I changed my mind. You know what? The 4, I'm actually going to do the light purple. Now for this, I'm going to do this just slightly bit different. Just like we did here, I'm going to go to the 3.5 and I'm just going to put 2 dots along the sides. going to go into the 2.5 and do another 2 dots. And then I'm going to use the 1.5 to close in the gap. So now at this point, again, we have a much larger space on these two here at the north and south ends than we do on these. Okay, so we are going to go and do another round of walked dots on these ones. And those are going to start out at a 5 at the top. I'm going to go down a whole size to a 4, and we're just going to put 1 dot to the side of these. I'm going to go down just 1 step from the 4 to the 3.5, and we are actually going to do some swooshes on the side of these. Now, just like along the swooshes here, I'm going to follow the edge of the dots, of the walked dots, and we're going to curl this all the way around. So now we're going to do a 4, and we're going to take this light green again, and on top of these elements we're going to do a little crown. What I mean by that is, so I'm going to take the 4 and I'm going to put a dot here. This is on the right side and the left side of that line, and then 1 right on top. Here is one of the main reasons why I wanted to make sure that I had the 4 lines coming out at each of the corners. We're actually going to do a bit of an embellishment here. We're going to do a walk and some additional swooshes that come out here to kind of close this up. We're going to go back to the 8, and we're going to go into that light purple, and I'm going to get a dot right here on these corners. Now the first one is going to be a 3, just for the top here. I want to keep these very, very sharp, so I'm going to use a 2 instead of a 2.5 for the walk. Okay, we're going to go up a size to a 4 and into the light green again. Going to go down a whole step into the 3 to do the walks. Okay, and then the last one is going to be a 5 in the dark green. Now we have the corners sticking out just a little bit here, and it's time to move into our swooshes. Now I'm going to take a 5, and we're going to go right up here next to this line, and I'm going to add a dot right next to the line. I'm actually going to take and make this a swoosh. We're going to go down 4 dots, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to end up at, give or take, right about here. So we're going to put that again right next to the line, right on top of the other one. Then I'm going to bring that down 4. just gonna go down a half to a 4.5, and we're gonna go into the light purple. We're following kind of the same thing here. Now the only difference is we're actually gonna drag this one underneath one more dot, so it's gonna come down here. We're going to move down another half a step to a 4, and we are going to be in the light green. And then sort of in that same pattern, we're just going to drag it down another dot, so we're going to be down here. And one more time, we're moving down to a 3.5 and into the dark green. Okay, now we're going to go back into the 4, and here for these corners, we're actually going to kind of do almost like, sort of like a vine almost. Okay, so I'm going to take the 4 and we're going to make a dot just on the other side of the line in that kind of general direction here, just sort of diagonal. Then we're going to do another one almost in that same diagonal. Now I'm in a 3, and we're going to curve this just a little. Take this, and we're going to go around. And I'm just going to take and kind of go back towards the end. Okay, so now I've got all 4 of the corners done. The next step is going to be taking a nice metallic gold, and we're going to be filling in some spaces and touching this up. Then we will also be going through with the other colors, maybe lightening them up a little bit and getting some top dots in, and then that'll finish this piece out. Okay, but the first thing I want to do, I'm going to take a 3.5 and I'm going to put some dots here on top of these darker green ones. Give that a little bit of an accented touch. And I'm going to put these right near the bottom. I find that it really draws your eye more towards the center. If you don't put the dot right over the center of the one underneath it, if you touch the bottom here, it always reminds me somewhat of like a peacock's feathers. One of the things that I noticed going through here is that I do have still quite a bit of space. So what I'm thinking I'm going to do is just add another dot right underneath it and bring that a little closer to the center. And I'm just using a 4 for this. Now again, my canvas is completely dry, so I can definitely kind of lean on this if I needed to. Now I'm going to have to do this particular part in sections. Let's go down to a 3, because what I'm going to do is actually put a gold dot here, again on the bottom. And I'll put another smaller one on the dot that I've just placed underneath it as well, once that's dry. All right, the next next spot that I need to put a top dot, let's see. Let's move back probably, actually I can go likely to even a 5, is I'm gonna add a dark purple here. You know what, I'm even gonna go a little higher. Let me go with 5, 5, because then again, once this is dry, I'm gonna add a gold dot here. So we're gonna have 3 dots on this particular level here. Looking at these here, and I do want to add a top dot, and initially I wanted that to be the light green, but you know what, I don't have a lot of the dark purple on this. Let's actually just try for gold. Yeah, that'll work. I think a 4.5. And I think I'll actually continue that on these 4 corners. Now I'm going to take a 2, and on these here, on these little crowns, I'm just going to take the dark green and add a top dot to those. Now for this, the top dot is going to come in towards the center. So a couple of the cleanup things that I want to do. Now, I didn't necessarily like the way that this kind of came sort of to an abrupt corner here. So I'm going to take let me start with a 2.5. And I'm going to add in another dot here. Let's go down to 2. And I'm going to go into the dark green, and I'm going to kind of follow this around. Now I've got my 1.5 still in hand, and I'm going to go ahead, let's get a good nice dunk on that one. Then I'm going to add in some gold along this edge. We do have some additional space sort of around these edges. So the other thing that I'm going to do, I'm actually going to keep this tool in hand. The other side of my tool is the 1.5 round head instead of the 0.5 kind of more pointed one that I use for my swooshes. So I'm actually going to take this, and along these, I'm actually going to make another swoosh with the gold. So I'm going to start here. And I'm going to let that be real light and real small. I'm in the size 1, size 1. And along these purple sides, I'm actually going to go ahead and do some highlight kind of micro dots as well. I did notice that on these 4, we have dots on these that come all the way up over this line, but not on these. So I want to be a little bit more consistent and kind of meet up to that line. So I'm going to add the same kind of crown and the light purple on these as I have on these other things here. Now, these purple dots here should be dry enough that I'm going to add the other top dot. This is a 3.5. Okay, now I'm going to drop into a 2, and we're going to do the little ones underneath. going to move over to a 2.5, and for these dots here, I'm going to go into the light green and just get a touch on top of these. Same thing I'm going to do here. So on these, I've decided to add a little bit more of a flourish. I'm going back to my nail art tool. This one, this end is actually a 2, or well, technically I think it's a 2.1. And I am loading up really, really well on this. I'm adding 2 dots. And then on the third, a swoosh. The last thing that I think I'm going to do here is just take the gold and highlight this crown with a 1.5. And I think we're going to call that one complete. I do need to wait. I'll probably wait another day to let this dry. And then at that point, I do have a 4B eraser, a little art eraser that I love. The pencil marks that I've drawn here were just standard graphite pencils. So this 4B eraser will take those off super easily. And then I'll be coating this with some spray. And that's going to be the same glaze that I used on the bottom. And thank you so much for joining me. I certainly do appreciate it. If you've made it this far, make sure that you hit the subscribe button if you want to see more of this particular content. And if you do find a piece just like this one that you would like to purchase, I do have these up in my coffee shop. The link is actually below in the description. All right, take care, and we'll see you next time.